Us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. There is a whole lot of news tonight, including this: no ID, but new video. There is a manhunt underway at this hour at Brown University as a person of interest is set free.
We're going to see what happens. Hopefully they're going to capture this animal. Hopefully they're going to capture it.
Has Kash Patel told you why it's been so difficult for the FBI to identify who the shooter is?
Well, it's always difficult. So far, we've done a very good job of doing it.
Now, the Trump administration also says it thwarted a potential New Year's Eve terror attack, plus a Hollywood legend murder. Police say director Rob Reiner and his wife killed by their own son. Why even Republicans now are denouncing President Trump's reaction. Also this evening, chaos over the Caribbean. A passenger plane narrowly avoids a midair collision with an Air Force tanker patrolling Venezuela. You will hear the pilot's frantic radio call and a concerning comeback. Measles, a disease once eradicated, now seeing a dangerous resurgence across the U.S. Why it could lead to the U.S. losing its elimination status. But first tonight, one attack thwarted while a manhunt continues at this hour. The FBI today revealing that it broke up a New Year's Eve bomb plot. Law enforcement describing the threat to Los Angeles as credible and pointing to a pro-Palestinian anti-government group. The announcement from back home coming just hours after terror abroad, a beach in Australia. This the scene of an anti-Semitic attack. Meantime, in Rhode Island tonight, the search continues for an assassin. Authorities releasing a person of interest in the Brown University shooting and now cluing in on new surveillance video and are asking for the public's help. Jessica Cartalia with us in a moment from Rhode Island, but we begin tonight with our Joe Khalil on the big break in this New Year's Eve case. Joe?
Yeah, Blake, so much violence in all of these plots this White House is addressing in just the last 48 hours here. Today, the FBI from Los Angeles announced they arrested 4 people who were, in their words, part of a left-wing domestic terrorist organization called the Turtle Island Liberation Front. And these FBI agents say all 4 who were arrested on Friday, and you see it there, they were plotting a mass bombing campaign on New Year's Eve, targeting 5 specific locations in Southern California, targeting 2 specific companies. They didn't say which ones. And as you see here, they were arrested in the middle of the Mojave Desert on Friday, actually planning and rehearsing that attack, these FBI agents say. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, also saying that they were plotting to go after ICE agents and ICE targets as well. These are the 4 arrested there. Meantime, President Trump also taking questions about several other topics. We talked about the Brown mass shooting with someone still at large. He took questions also about that horrific attack in Australia on Bondi Beach where 15 people were killed. And then he spoke, I think, most thoroughly today about what happened in Syria with the American service members, 2 of them killed, 1 other American also killed alongside them after an ISIS gunman opened fire. President Trump vowing for more retaliation against ISIS within Syria. This is what he said.
This had nothing to do with the Syrian government. This had to do with ISIS.
What will the U.S. response be?
As a response, they'll be hit hard.
The president reaffirmed his support for the new Syrian president, Ahmed al-Shara. But, Blake, President al-Shara is going to be under a lot of scrutiny to see how he handles ISIS and whether he can keep the terrorist organization at bay within his own country. Remember, he himself a controversial figure, former al-Qaeda leader, now an ally of President Trump of the United States.
Our Joe Khalil live tonight over at the White House. Joe, thank you. Now over to our Jessica Cartalia and that new surveillance video that law enforcement just released in its efforts to try to track down that killer at Brown University. Jessica?
Well, Blake, it's been an incredible 24 hours here in Providence. The FBI just announcing that they are offering a $50,000 reward for information that could potentially lead them to another person of interest or a suspect in this shooting. They have released this video that you see of a new person of interest on campus. Evidence response teams have been here all day in this building behind me here. This is the engineering building where the shooting took place. This all comes just hours after they released the man that they had in custody because they weren't sure that they had enough evidence to connect him to the shooting. For about 20 hours, everyone here on campus really breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that they had someone. Turns out that person was not who they were looking for. An incredible setback, just as the names of the victims have been released, or two of those victims, rather. The FBI has been here searching. You're looking at video now of them going through the bushes, looking for additional evidence in the case of this shooting that occurred on Saturday while students here on Brown's campus were in a study session ahead of finals week. Late last night, police urgently renewed their search for the shooter after investigators released that initial person of interest. Providence Mayor Brett Smiley saying authorities don't know whether the gunman is still in the city or if he has fled the area. They just held a press conference a short time ago. Our crews asked them, are you looking for a living person or could this person potentially be deceased? And they said at this point, we are not ruling anything out. Police have not released a description of the suspect, only the photos that we've seen with the person wearing all black and a mask. Late last night, we have gotten the identity of one of the victims, Blake, that was Ella Cook. And then today we got another victim, and that is Muhammad Urmazakov. Just a very sad day here on Brown University's campus as this investigation continues.
Jessica Cartaya live for us tonight, Providence, Rhode Island. Jessica, thank you. With us now, retired FBI counterterrorism agent Tim Clemente joining us live here on the Hill. Tim, thanks for being with us. I want to show that new surveillance video that law enforcement just released, because that's the video that they want out. That's the video that they want the public to take a look at. This individual right here, had clothes on, they were masked, obviously, dark clothes from top to bottom. How likely is it that this is the piece of information that leads the FBI and authorities to the shooter?
I would say, Blake, it's extremely likely. The other video you showed just minutes ago where he's walking past the gate and turning around, it shows the gait, the walk of this individual, the approximate physical stature of them, their height, their weight, the way they move. So there will be people that know him that recognize him in this video. Those people may know that he's in that area right now, the area of Brown University. He may live in a different part of the country, but he went on a trip the last few days, or he may be local. And the thing that really helps law enforcement is to get something like that out. That original image where he's just rounding the corner was very vague, very hard to see much about him, but the new video is much clearer as far as everything about him except for close-up physical features of his face. It looks like he's light-skinned, so that narrows it down. And the size and height of him, the girth around his waist, and the way he walks are all going to be recognizable to someone who knows him.
Let me take you out west now, Tim, because there was that the FBI announcing today the arrest of a handful of people who were threatening a New Year's Eve terrorist attack. There was a scene out in the desert, pipe bombs as well, part of the evidence that the FBI put forward. How close were they, Tim?
Well, if they had explosives and they were testing them in the Mojave Desert, they were very close to being able to execute this plan. In an investigation, especially a federal investigation, there are multiple steps. One of the most important, though, is seeing that the suspects commit what's known as a substantial step towards the commission of the ultimate crime. And in this case, building a bomb is the substantial step towards doing a bombing. And so if they were out there doing a trial run to test out their explosives, and the FBI, as you can see, is surveilling them while this is happening, that's dramatic evidence of the actual crime being perpetrated, because you don't have to wait for the actual bombing to happen.
Yeah,
this is a conspiracy to commit a bombing, and the fact that they were building bombs, it's very undeniable at that point what their intention was.
Tim Clemente, retired FBI counterterrorism agent, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thanks for the expertise, sir. Appreciate it. Also this evening, President Trump continuing to call for a change to America's healthcare system.
I want all money going to the people, and let the people buy their own health care. It'll be unbelievable. They'll do a great job. They'll get much better health care at a much lower cost.
But as we sit here tonight, the clock is ticking. to try to avoid massive premium hikes for roughly 24 million Americans as Obamacare tax credits expire at the end of this year. Congress continues to debate potential changes. Many House Republicans are even calling for a short-term fix to extend the subsidies. One of those Republicans, Mike Lawler from New York, represents one of the most competitive districts you will find anywhere in this country, with us tonight here on the Hill. Congressman Lawler, thanks for being back with us. I think, let me start here, because I think there's 24 million Americans tonight who don't care about the politics, who don't care what the Democrats are saying or what the Republicans are saying. They just want to know if their premiums are going up in a few weeks. What would you tell them?
And they're right to be concerned. This is not about politics or party. This is about actually delivering on an issue that impacts 24 million Americans. From my vantage point, we have a short-term issue that needs to be addressed, which is the expiration of these premium tax credits that were put in place during COVID. If you look at Obamacare, since it took effect, healthcare premiums have risen by 96%. So the issue here is that these subsidies expiring, yet insurance premiums continue to go up. And so it's going to have a dramatic impact on these 24 million people who rely on this subsidy. So
is there going to be a deal?
I have put forth with my colleagues, Brian Fitzpatrick, Jen Kiggins, David Valadeo, among others, 2 pieces of legislation to extend the premium tax credit in the short term with reforms so that we could actually start to right the ship.
Is there going to be a deal, though, Congressman?
I'm sorry?
Is there going to be a deal? Like, does that end up getting done? More than likely, or no?
This is what we're fighting for. We're going to the Rules Committee tomorrow to submit amendments to the bill that the Speaker has put forth to include the extension of these subsidies. We saw last week the Senate voted down 2 different plans, not getting the 60 votes required. We have 2 discharge petitions that already have more than enough Republicans. So there's enough, there's several routes here that we can actually move legislation. The 2 discharges that have more than enough Republicans on them, if every Democrat signs on, we can move those bills. So I just encourage all of my colleagues, regardless of party, to do what is right for their constituents here and advance this legislation forward.
Let me ask you about what the president said today. He signed an executive order classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. And then he was also asked about rescheduling marijuana and said that's under consideration. Here's what he said, and then we'll pick it up on the other side.
With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction.
He also confirmed that he's looking to potentially reschedule marijuana. Are those the right moves from the president, Congressman?
So look, if you look at the reason that we went after the cartels and labeled them, foreign terrorist organizations, is because over 75,000 Americans are dying on an annual basis from fentanyl overdose, and most of the drugs laced with fentanyl are coming across the border. And so he's right to go after that. He's right to go after fentanyl. That is what is killing many Americans on an annual basis. But I think rescheduling marijuana is wrong. The fact is, marijuana is a gateway drug. Most of the people who end up using harder substances start out on marijuana. The THC content in marijuana is significantly higher today than it was 30, 40 years ago. And so when you look at the challenges that we're facing as a country with substance use disorder, I don't think rescheduling marijuana is wise. I'm opposed to that. Okay. And I think we need to work to address the fact that we have a demand issue in this country. We need to help people get the support that they need, simultaneously going after the dealers and those certainly who push fentanyl-laced products.
Part of the conversation that you'll see take place within the Republican caucus. Mike Lawler, Republican from New York, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
Of course. Still to come tonight, tragedy in Hollywood and outrage in Washington. The backlash as President Trump comments on the murders of the legendary director Rob Reiner and his wife as their son is arrested for their deaths. Plus, Catastrophe averted. Hear just how close a JetBlue flight came to a mid-air collision with a military jet. And NewsNation is uncovering more accusations of tax fraud. What another former employee is saying about the finances of a nonprofit in Maine. I'm Blake Burman. I'll clear my voice here. Back on the other side, 4 minutes away. The Hollywood community, movie fans all across the globe, continuing tonight to mourn the shocking murders of Rob Weiner and his wife. NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Enton has the very latest on this case. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Blake. Yeah, we're in Brentwood tonight. This is Rob Reiner's house behind me. You can see the white fence, all the holiday decorations up. There's a security guard standing outside. It's so sad to think that this family was about to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah when this tragedy happened. And now Rob Reiner's son, Nick Reiner, officially charged with murdering both of his parents, stabbing them to death. And we have learned, Blake, that it is Rob Reiner's daughter who lives in this area right across the street who came over to check on her parents and actually made the discovery that they were both dead, and that she is actually the one, we are told, who told police that she believed that her brother could be responsible. Again, her brother has now been arrested. He's in the jail here in LA, charged with murder, and there is no bond for him right now. Blake?
Brian, President Trump reacted to this earlier today, writing in part that Rob Reiner has passed away, and then he went on to say, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome. The president was asked about this earlier today. Here's what he said.
Mr. President, a number of Republicans have denounced your statement on Truth Social after the murder of Rob Reiner. Do you stand by that post?
Well, I wasn't a fan of his at all. He was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned.
What's the reaction out there tonight, Brian, given the news, trying to cope with this, trying to process this, and then reading and hearing that out of the Oval Office?
Yeah, I mean, I think the emotions are still so raw here, Blake. So many people knew the Reiners. So many people looked up to them. One neighbor was just telling me they were the kind of people that this white gate you'd see behind me was open, and they would just welcome people in, especially this time of year with holiday parties and festivities. So the neighborhood here is definitely heartbroken. I've seen some tweets from, different people in the industry, to someone from Patrick Schwarzenegger calling out President Trump, not appreciating that comment. But I think here, at least in Brentwood, people are just still sort of trying to process everything that happened, Blake.
Brian Enton, live for us tonight out in Southern California. Brian, thank you. Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, meeting today with the conservative commentator Candace Owens, who has spread conspiracy theories about her husband's murder. Erica Kirk posting that she and Owens have agreed to hold off on public comments until after the meeting, and she looks forward to a productive conversation. Owens replied that she's, quote, very much looking forward to this discussion, end quote. In the months since Charlie Kirk's assassination, Owens has repeatedly pushed conspiracy theories about his death. She has also made unfounded fraud allegations about Turning Point USA, where she once worked for Kirk. Erica Kirk, as you know, now runs that organization. Still much more ahead tonight here on The Hill.
With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction.
President Trump, you heard it there, reclassifies fentanyl. What today's declaration means for his power to stop the drugs from coming into our country, plus new documents and a second whistleblower. It's the story Rich McHugh has been all over in Maine. The latest from Rich up north. And from Trump-era successes to black box warnings, what's going on with the COVID shot and measles in America when we return.
Drugs coming in by sea are down 94%. And we're trying to figure out who the other 6% are. But they're down 94%, and we're going to start hitting them on land, which is a lot easier to do, frankly.
As you hear there, President Trump once again threatening land strikes again today as the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean continues. Tomorrow, here in Washington, all senators are set to be briefed on Venezuela by the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio amid continuing pressure from Congress to know what the plan is and what's going on with those boat strikes. A bipartisan group of lawmakers are expected to force a vote this week on preventing President Trump from taking military action, potentially, against Venezuela without congressional approval. Our Robert Sherman, our man in the arena, once again tonight live from Puerto Rico ahead of these big meetings here on the Hill. Robert?
Well, hey there, Blake. Well, whether it's the rumble of F-18 jet engines or the spinning of Black Hawk rotors, the U.S. military presence here can be seen and heard all over the Caribbean. It is a massive presence that is here in the region. And now lawmakers are asking the question, what exactly is the end game here? We know that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be briefing senators tomorrow and then House members after that as well in order to lay out exactly what some of these objectives are. That is still an issue that the White House has kept rather close to the vest as to exactly what the goals of all of this may be. But as you see this large-scale presence here in the region, well, there was an apparent close call with a JetBlue commercial flight that was going from the Caribbean to New York. They say that they almost had a collision with a U.S. Air Force tanker. Those are the aircraft that deliver those mid-air refuelings. Here was the exchange between the pilot of that JetBlue flight and air traffic control.
They passed directly in our flight path. We had to stop our climb. They are not painting. They don't have their transponder turned on. It's outrageous. If you can make a note of it, we almost had a mid-air collision up here.
Now, Southcom giving us this statement, which reads in part, quote, "Safety remains a top priority, and we are working through the appropriate channels to assess the facts surrounding the situation." It is an incident that they are aware of. And as you see all these tensions rising here in the Caribbean, take a look at what Venezuela has been doing. They've been putting out all these videos on state television showing their aircraft, showing their troops performing drills, trainings, making a clear message that should any of this tension, should any of these operations come to Venezuelan soil, they're not willing to back down. Blake?
The transponder not on. I'm guessing that's probably the way the military wants it, given everything that's going on. Robert Sherman, live tonight there in the region. Robert, thanks so much. Meantime, News Nation continuing to investigate alleged widespread Medicaid fraud in Maine. It's the second state suspected of defrauding taxpayers through a Medicaid scheme after similar allegations first broke out in Minnesota. You see Rich McHugh there. He has been all over this story from the beginning. Rich, hello, good evening. What are you learning tonight?
Hi, Blake. So after our story featuring Chris Bernardini, who blew the whistle on Gateway Community Services in Maine, we tried to reach them for comment. Finally, they have responded. And on Facebook, they admitted this. They said, from time to time, the government audits have found errors. Then in a press release, they say, these allegations are false. Gateway Community Services maintains strict billing documentation and compliance protocols and has cooperated with state oversight agencies. They say of Bernardini, at no point during his employment did he raise any concerns, formal or informal, related to inaccurate billing, fraud, or impropriety. But employment records show that he did raise concerns. In this 2022 performance review of Bernardini, his manager writes, Chris always identifies potentially fraudulent EVV claims and billing errors. And in April of 24, Bernardini wrote to the Department of Homeland Security claiming possible fraud, seeking whistleblower protection. Now, two different state audits covering 2015 to 2018 found that Gateway overbilled the state by $662,000, and the state issued Gateway 2 formal violation notices. Gateway, they say they paid $125,000 to the state in 2018, but according to Maine Department of Health and Human Services, they are still trying to recoup over $537,000 from Gateway. Now, it's important to note, Gateway works with the Somali immigrants in Maine. 2 Somali American state representatives in Maine have had close ties to the group. Democratic State Rep Decca Delac was previously the executive director at Gateway, and Yusuf wrote in his legislative profile he worked closely with the organization. Now, that reference has now been scrubbed from his profile as of last week, and now the representative has responded to our request for comment. Now, I do want to say, Blake, After they posted their statement on Facebook, I spoke with another former employee of Gateway who is blowing the whistle. This person wrote a formal complaint to the Federal Health and Human Services over the weekend. They showed me the receipt. I know I verified their employment. They don't want to be named. They're anonymous. No word still from Janet Mills, the governor.
Rich McHugh with the update tonight. Rich, thank you. Meantime, measles outbreaks are spreading across the country. And health experts are warning that America is on the verge of losing its measles elimination status, potentially for the first time in decades. Now, just last week in South Carolina, they quarantined at least 250 people there after confirming more than 24 measles cases in the state. It's the latest in what's been the worst year for measles in the U.S. in recent history. You got to go back several decades. Joining us now, Dr. Brent Giroir, who helped lead the federal pandemic response, to explain what that designation means and how serious this all might be. Doctor, nice to see you. It's been a little while. Thanks for joining us tonight. Let me start with what's going on there in South Carolina. More than 250 people quarantined. What's going on?
Well, measles is one of the most contagious diseases on the planet. So it is spread very easily. If you walk in a room that a person has measles and you're not immune, you're likely to get it. So it's very important for people with measles who can be contagious from 4 days before they have the rash until 4 days after they have the rash to keep them away from all other vulnerable people. And as you said, measles cases in the U.S. right now are pushing about 2,000.
Yeah.
This is by far the most serious measles outbreaks we've had in decades.
Yeah, 1,912 to be exact, and the CDC will update that dashboard tomorrow. So, you know, the numbers could rise. 42 states right now. What's incumbent upon the CDC, upon the Trump administration? What should they do right now? Do they need to get out in front of this, say something? What?
Absolutely, and I was writing as early as March and April about this. I'm old enough to have treated measles during one of the last outbreaks in 1990. I took care of children in the ICU with measles. I went to funerals of children with measles. This is a very serious disease, and fortunately, we have a highly effective vaccine against measles that is given usually around the first birthday, 1 year of age, and then again, right when children go into school. 97, 98, 99% effective against preventing measles. The cases we're seeing and the 3 deaths we've had this year are a result of a lack of vaccination. So we can talk about other vaccines in other situations, but unless we want to see dozens of children dying next year of measles, it's very important for parents to talk to their physician, their healthcare provider, and get their kids immunized.
I see on the bottom of the screen there, and as we mentioned, we're set to lose potentially the measles elimination status in this country. What does that mean, and why is that potentially significant?
Well, it's horrifying and it's embarrassing that our country, the technological leader of the world, will lose our designation of measles being eliminated when this is completely preventable. It's actually shameful. And what it means is there will have been sustained transmission of measles in our country for, I believe it's 12 months, and that designation could be lost in January. It's not something magical. It is a marker, though, that say, hey, wake up. There's sustained transmission. There are thousands of cases. And in 1990, when I was practicing as a young physician in the pediatric ICU, there were about 30,000 cases of measles in our country, and somewhere close to 80, 90, 100 deaths. We cannot see this happen again. And I would say the Trump administration, and specifically Secretary Kennedy, needs to advocate unconditionally for measles vaccine for all whom it's appropriate. Measles vaccine does not cause death and suffering like measles. It is quite a safe and very effective vaccine.
Dr. Brett Giroir, as you see there, former Assistant Secretary for Health, with us tonight here on the Hill. Nice to see you again, sir. Thank you. Still to come tonight. Other side of the break, President Trump ramping up his war on drugs, saying he will classify fentanyl, get this, as a weapon of mass destruction. So what does that actually mean? We'll explain. And can Congress get to yes on an Obamacare deal before the clock runs out? And it is ticking at this hour. On the other side.
With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is.
President Trump today, as you heard there, classifying fentanyl as a WMD, weapon of mass destruction. The opioid claiming tens of thousands of lives every year and is responsible for over half of all drug overdoses in the United States over the past year. The president said of the decision, quote, "No bomb does what this is doing." It comes as the Trump administration has been ramping up efforts to combat the flow of drugs into the United States. Full panel here with me now. Jessica Taylor, U.S. Senate and Governor's editor at the Cook Political Report. Denise Gitsum, News Nation political contributor, and Scott Bolden, News Nation political contributor as well. Hello to you both. Thanks for being here.
Forgot my name that quick?
What's that?
You forgot my name
No,
that
they had
quick?
lots of titles in there, and I decided to simplify it. Nice to see you. Hello.
I know. It's okay. I would like that.
So the president today classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. 42,233 fentanyl overdose deaths, Denise, in the last 12-month period that we have on record.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the only reason this was ever probably even brought up originally is because in 2002 in Moscow, this actually happened. Like, the Russians actually used aerosolized fentanyl derivative in a hostage issue with the Chechen rebels. So that was when everyone started paying attention to this. I learned this myself today when I was prepping for the session. But, I mean, look at it. It's asymmetric warfare against civilians with something so small. It's like a couple grains of sand is super lethal. So to me, it fits the definition. It's not about what it looks like on the front end so much as what it can actually do. And in effect, it is de facto a weapon of mass destruction.
So yeah, but so it's not a weapon by definition, as cited in the executive order. The executive order has no real legal import either. It covers the agencies and it directs them to put emphasis on this and to use resources against it. I don't know if anybody's going to sue him over it, but the fact of the matter is, if you really want to have a war on drugs, you're not going to put your whole fleet of military off the coast of Venezuela, because there's no fentanyl in Venezuela. You put them off the coast of Mexico, you put them off the coast of China, where the real fentanyl is being made as well as imported, and then you reduce the demand and you arrest and prosecute those drug dealers or those traffickers who are really bringing the harm to citizens in the U.S. This is good for show politically, but the real issue is, can they put the resources behind it? And right now, all the resources are going to immigration, and all the military resources seem to be in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela.
You take any issue with that?
No, I mean, look, you're right. It is good politically, and that's what Trump does best, right? And this is an easy win for him. This is an 80-20 issue.
If he implements.
But when Democrats come against him on this issue, it's a win for him.
Nobody's against the president on fentanyl. Not at all.
I hope not.
Jessica, obviously, you know, we've seen fentanyl deaths, 70% there were 70% of overdose deaths back in 2023. That number's dropped at 57%. Obviously, as they both said, everybody wants to see that number get down to zero, right? Full stop. Politically, with the president doing this today, it felt like at least he had an event talking about the border and highlighting his successes there. Speaking about that event, it seemed like the president wanted to get back to an issue that no matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican on, you can say he's succeeded, and he's trying to frame it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at it in the listen, immigration was Trump's bread and butter. It's how he launched his 2016 campaign. It was the weakest issue for the Biden administration that continues to sort of haunt Democrats, I think. But you have seen a dip in his base in some polling, and so I think this is a way to sort of rally the MAGA faithful. You know, he's been criticized on ICE enforcement and different things, but you're right. I mean, I think with fentanyl, if we can frame it as sort of an immigration issue, this is a way for the White House to do that.
He also said today that it confirmed that they're looking toward potentially reclassifying or rescheduling marijuana. I had Mike Lawler, a Republican, on the show push back against that today, and I think you're going to see an interesting conversation develop there.
Yeah, I mean, you have seen some Republicans want to expand this because you have it in states and different things. So that could be a really interesting kind of contrast there between. I mean, Lawler is one of the most vulnerable Republican incumbent members of Congress as well.
You know, it's funny because I hate pot. I was a dare kid, right? And I always will be. I think it stinks, it's gross. Yeah. But I don't know why it always has to be, you know, this or that. The reality is marijuana has a lot of potential medical benefit. Now, potential, actualized, and Schedule 1 classification means that there is no medical use for it, which is definitionally wrong. It does have medical use, even if I hate it, you know, just when people smoke it on the side of the street.
Really. This is where Democrats agree with Denise.
Yeah, but the classification won't matter to the practical pot smoker who's MAGA or who's on the far left or far right. The fact of the matter is weed is legal in at least 44 states, whether it's medicinal or whether it's recreational. I mean, we're based in D.C. and weed is legal here, and it doesn't have to be medicinal. So the fact of the matter is, again, this is kind of political, but it won't make a real difference. Weed is here to stay, and it's legal.
All right. Meantime, as lawmakers in Congress are scrambling to reach a deal on health care before the Obamacare tax credits expire in 17 days, end of the month, end of the year, the president today speaking on the future of health care.
I want all money going to the people and let the people buy their own health care. It'll be unbelievable. They'll do a great job. They'll get much better health care at a much lower cost.
Jessica, the reality is you've got a Democratic demand, I think is probably a better word, right, to say extend the subsidies.
Right.
You've got Republicans saying expand health savings accounts. You've got the president saying all of this stinks, let's do something better. And you and I both know this, the thing that Washington does the best is punt and do short term.
Right.
And is that where this is headed?
I mean, the fact that we're, you know, on December 15th right now and there's no consensus does not leave me optimistic that they are going to do something, because I don't think there is enough Republican votes there to extend it. When they control both the Senate, you have to get to 60 in the House. I mean, but, you know, the members that are saying this is a problem for me, again, are people like Mike Lawyer that you just had on, David Valdeo in California, Jen Kiggins in Virginia, that are at the forefront of trying to find some type of compromise. Those are the seats where the House is going to be won or lost, especially as we see that redistricting ultimately may be more of a wash than we thought at the beginning, when we're talking about possibly just a game of inches in the House. But I think, you know, again, you're coming down to the wire, and it's the holidays. I guess I'm not super optimistic.
This isn't naming a post office, I guess is what I'm saying, right? Like, this is doing
this is really big
health
stuff.
care. This is really big stuff. If you were running for Congress in that really tight district in California.
Which is exactly what I did in 2016 with Trump at the top.
You would support this. You would support the extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies because you'd have to politically.
I think it's unfair to punish people for bad policy decisions and a lack of courage on Republicans' part, even though everyone on both sides of the aisle recognizes Obamacare for the disaster that it is.
You would support it, though,
No, this is what I would do. I think there's an in-between. I think there's a way to titrate out of Obamacare. I think there's a way to put, you know, say grandfather all the people that are already on it, and then figure out a way to not let additional people get on, and then give them the option, but work. Here's where Republicans failed. We did not do the hard work of socializing people about the better alternatives to Obamacare. When President Trump says we're just going to give the money to the people, people understand that. But when we talk in nerdy, wonky talk about direct primary care, HSAs, nobody understands that. And so we have to be better about making our case. And the reason we haven't is because we've been too cowardly to take the lead on this issue.
So the deadline, Scott, of the end of this year was because when Democrats had control, this was their deadline. Did you guys swing and miss?
We swang and we swung and got as much as we could. The problem with the Republicans on this is let's all agree. Health care is really difficult. It's not as simple as giving people money and having put them in a health savings account. We have health savings accounts right now. I have one at my law firm. The fact of the matter is it's more than that, and 24 million Americans, including a lot of Republicans, are relying on Obamacare. It's here to stay. And here's another point. A couple days ago, neither bill passed. The extension on Obamacare didn't pass, and then the health savings plan didn't pass either. So the Republicans who control all three houses still don't have a game plan, but more importantly, they don't have a health care plan, and they haven't for 10 years. So you extend it. You don't hear Republicans saying, hey, just extend Obamacare. What you hear them saying is, most of them say, extend it, and let's negotiate something better, because it is imperfect.
On January 1, for these 24 million Americans, yes or no, prices go up?
I think they're going up.
You think they're going up?
I do.
All right, we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Scott, Denise, Jessica, thank you
you.
so much. Appreciate it. Still to come. Other side of the break, how an American success story is now being swept up by China. I'll explain. Holiday time, best time of the year, as you know. You might find yourself looking at gadgets to get as gifts. Maybe you're one of the millions of Americans who owns one of these. You know that thing down there. That's the Roomba, the high-tech helper that roams around your house, cleaning the floors, doing the dirty work. It's an American success story for decades, built years ago by MIT grads, but now it's going the way of China. The parent company for iRobot filing for bankruptcy and announcing that it is being bought by its Chinese supplier. At least that's the intention. And here's partly why. Back in 2022, iRobot tried to sell to Amazon, but Europe blocked the move. Democrats, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, were on board with that, even calling for the Biden administration to do the same. So when the deal fell apart, mass layoffs followed for the Massachusetts company, the state, by the way, that Warren represents. And then came tariffs, which haven't helped either. This time, iRobot says they are going to emerge stronger, but the new plan is to be saved by a Chinese company, not the Seattle-based Amazon. Why am I telling you this? Well, it's a reminder that some political decisions just can't be swept under the rug. Coming up, seconds away on Elizabeth Vargas Report, she'll speak to the Assistant U.S. Attorney, Bill Aselyi. He joins Elizabeth on that New Year's Eve terror plot that was foiled in Los Angeles, stopped by the FBI. Bill Aselyi and Elizabeth moments away here on News Nation. It's going to be a big day tomorrow morning for the folks in this building. The jobs report coming for both November and October. First thing in the morning, we talk about affordability and what's before the president and the White House. The narrative tomorrow morning shifts on that front when we learn about jobs in America. I'm Blake Burman. Thanks for being with us tonight. Elizabeth starts now.